So all court players demand a lot from their tennis rackets, but what should you really be looking for to get the most out of your frame as an all court player? Well, in today's video, we're going to be discussing some of the absolute best tennis rackets available today for all court play, ranking them by level from NTRP 3.5 or UTR 3+, all the way to NTRP 5.0 and above. So the most important thing for all court players is really versatility. You need to be able to find success from all areas of the court, and your racket should too. Whatever racket you choose should have a clean balance of spin, control, and speed. The tricky thing is that every all-court player will need a different balance of these metrics, and I think the key to really finding what's right for you is understanding what your base tendencies are. While every all-court player is capable of winning points from all areas of the court by definition, most of them started with another playing style before developing all the other parts of their games. Consider Carlos Alcaraz. As a junior, he earned most of his success on clay. He was an aggressive baseliner with a relatively poor serve, susceptible to constant service breaks. Today, he's constantly rushing the net, either behind his very effective kick serve, his huge forehand, or that signature drop shot we've all come to absolutely love. I think it's clear that he's definitely his most comfortable from the baseline, but he's really managed to master skills in the forecourt to win more points. And in my opinion, his racket of choice truly reflects that. Carlos grew up using just that standard pure arrow, but as he got stronger and as his game developed, he switched to the pure arrow VS to gain a little bit more control, more consistency, and speed in the court, something that helps him a lot when he's mixing things up. Another example is the king of all-court tennis, Roger Federer. He grew up playing tennis in the 90s, a time where fast courts were ruled by serve and volley players. When Federer earned his first win over Pete Sampras at Wimbledon, he did so by rushing the net, serving and volleying, and chip and charging. But when court speed slowed through the early 2000s, Federer's baseline dominance came to the forefront. And by the end of his career, he was using a 97 score-inch frame, representing a huge departure from the 85 score-inch frame he began his career with. That bigger head helped him stay very competitive well into his 30s, along with the greatest baseline players we've ever seen. All of this is to say that there are different metas to the all-court style. There are baseliner builds on one hand, and on the other hand, we have serve and volley builds. So I'll be doing my best to recommend options for both styles when applicable. The baseliner builds will always emphasize power and spin, while those serve and volley builds will emphasize speed and control. I also want to really emphasize that feel is tremendously important for the all-court player, but I just don't think it's fair for me to say one racket feels good and one racket just feels bad. It's a little bit more complex than that. Because of this, I'm going to try to also include some different feeling options. Some rackets may feel more muted, like those from Yonex or Bablat, and some rackets are going to feel more connected, more responsive, like the options from Head or Wilson. So these are the absolute best rackets for all court players, starting with intermediate players at NTRP 3.5 and above, or UTR 3+. For baseliner builds, my top recommendation is the Yonex eZone 100. This racket features a more muted feel and is backed by class-leading stability and excellent access to power. The stability really comes in handy when it comes to blocking back returns or punching those volleys deep. The string bed is also surprisingly control-oriented, which really helps you stay on the gas when you're trying to be aggressive and take control of those points. Slices knife through the court surprisingly well for 100 score-inch option, and for those who find Yonex's feel to be a little bit too disconnected and want a racket that offers a little bit more feel, look no further than the Head Extreme MP. The Extreme offers better spin and much more speed through the court when compared to the EZone 100. However, it does sacrifice some control due to that more open string pattern. And for the serve and volley players, I think the EZone 100 is actually a very good option too. It works extremely well up at net. But if you want something that offers a little bit more of a connected feel, the Radical MP is a deadly solution. It offers stellar control and surprisingly strong forgiveness outside that sweet spot, especially when you consider that it's a 98 square inch racket. I think it offers a little bit more stability and a little bit more forgiveness than similar offerings like the Extreme Tour or the EZone 98. However, the feel is not quite as plush and it's just generally not quite as precise feeling as those two. That said, I think that extra forgiveness you get with the Radical is a very worthy trade-off at that intermediate level, and it will help you win more points by getting those few extra shots in play. Now on to experienced players at NTRP 4.0 or UTR 5 and above. For you, I think the best choice for the baseliner build is the Yonex EZone 98. The EZone 98 is a bestseller for a reason. It deserves all the success it's received. It features fantastic access to power and spin from that thicker beam along the hoop and deadly control from an ultra dense 16x19 pattern. The EZone 98 is just very well equipped to manage nearly every situation you're gonna face out there. It just loves high swing speeds as well, so make sure you really stay on the gas if you want your slices to knife through the court and your forehand drives to penetrate with power and spin.
I just wimped out so bad on
the tighter string pattern helps volleys stay under control at net, and that stiffer layup of graphite makes it very easy to punch volleys deep. One of the absolute best things about the EZone 98 is how fast it swings through the air. The immense amount of maneuverability allows for a huge amount of creativity when you're playing tennis. However, for many, the main downside is the more muted feel. To some, it can feel a little bit disconnected, especially when you compare it with a more muted string like Yonex Polytour Pro or Slinko Hyper G. So if you're looking for something more raw, the Extreme Tour is a top tier choice. The Extreme Tour really shines for all of the same reasons that the EZone 98 does. I think it's got a little bit more natural control because of that thinner beam and that softer flex in the hoop. I found that it actually seemed to work a bit better for flatter hitters despite the fact that it's marketed towards spin. It really flexes into the court when you're hitting, so you get this sort of forward flying slingshot effect into the court. Now, I really think that these two rackets really suit the serve and volley players as well, and I honestly couldn't think of better choices for those 4.0 players, so I'd like to offer a couple of honorable mentions instead. In general, I think players who find themselves at net more regularly can really benefit from rackets that have more weight in the handle. So I'm thinking rackets that are kind of in that 310 to 315 gram range. For a plusher choice, I think the VCore Pro 97 310 is a good way to go, and if you want something that's a little bit more connected, a little bit more raw, you should definitely check out the Pro Staff X. Now on to advanced players at NTRP 4.5 and above, or UTR 7+, starting again with the baseliner builds. Here, I think the best choice is the Pro Staff 97. This has honestly aged to be one of my absolute favorite stock rackets on the market. It's so easy to just pick up and play with completely stock. Usually I feel like I need to add weight and spend time tuning rackets to get them to work that well for my game, but the Pro Staff 97 just meshes so well. I honestly kind of think that I underhyped it a little bit when I made my initial review. This thing can bomb kick serves, slap flat ones anytime you're looking for a big first serve on an important point. That 97 square inch head keeps things super whippy, so you can just rip the ball and stay on top of everything, loading on a ton of extra spin, and you can just generally be super creative out there on court. The feel is very connected and quite responsive feeling. It's definitely not the most comfortable stick, and if you're looking for something that's a little bit more muted and a little bit softer feeling, I think the Yonex VCore 95 is a glorious choice. Now you've probably noticed that I've mentioned Yonex in like almost every category so far, and I swear this has nothing to do with them paying me. They don't even reply to my DMs on Instagram, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. I still like them. You know, this VCore 95 is one of the absolutely most versatile rackets that you can buy. It's surprisingly easy to use for a 95. I actually think its forgiveness is up there with a lot of 98s that you can buy these days. I even think if you're like a 4.0 player, you could definitely find success with the VCore 95, but it truly comes alive at those slightly higher levels. And so far, one of the things I've really prioritized on this list is fast feeling rackets, and I think the VCore 95 is the fastest feeling one. Yeah, it's got a very thin beam, some aerodynamic bullshit marketing bullshit, and an absolutely tiny 95 square inch head. All of these factors combined really minimize drag through the air. This racket is more than happy applying as much or as little topspin or slice as you ask for, and there's a ton of what I call tip awareness, which makes it super easy to feel and adjust the angle of your racket face as you go and swing through the ball. And even on defense, I found this racket to be surprisingly cooperative. I'd honestly say I'd prefer to use this racket on defense than a lot of other frames on this list. It lets you really just arc, curling, angled passing shots, and it just loves playing those touch games at net. It's super fun to use. Now again, I think both of these options are absolutely stellar for serve and volley types, so it's just going to be honorable mentions. The VCore Pro 97D is the first one that comes to mind. That D stands for density in the string pattern, so you've got a super control oriented 18x20 pattern and a heavyweight class at 320 grams unstrung. And if you're looking for something that feels a little bit more responsive, because some of those VCore Pros can be a bit muted, I really like the Slinko Whiteout 1820. Full disclosure, that is my current racket of choice. I absolutely love it, but what makes it special is that you can buy these weight control modules, they're called. They're just like cap replacement type things. You take the old trapdoor out, you can put in a new one, you can put that 5-gram one in there or that 10-gram. That's just going to give you more recoil weight and a little bit more stability when you go for those volleys. Now, just because I mentioned this in the volley category doesn't mean that the whiteout is incompetent at the baseline. In fact, my volleys are terrible. I usually just stay back at the baseline. That's where I mostly found success with it, but I think it's truly an excellent all-around option. Now, finally, moving on to the expert players, we're talking about NTRP 5.0 plus or UTR 9 plus, absolutely deadly players out there. And honestly, I've had a hard time trying to think of better rackets, like actually ones that I think you're gonna play better with out there on the court. And I think a lot of the rackets that we've already talked about are just some of the best rackets you can buy out there for any player at any price, full stop. It's hard for me to think of ones that really offer something better. I can think of rackets that are maybe harder to use, but I can't say that that makes them better. So I think we should really just be talking about some honorable mentions out there that are all good rackets. They should be considered for sure, but they're not necessarily the best rackets for 5.0 players. If you're 5.0, I think anything on that list you could definitely win a ton of points with. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, you found this video helpful, I just want to thank you so much for watching. I love that you're here. Let me know what video you'd like to see next down in the comment section below. Give me a like if you feel like it. That seems to like genuinely help me get more views, which is nice, but do what you are gonna do, obviously. So first up for the honorable mentions, I need to shout out Dunlop with the CX200. This is a great racket if you want something like an extreme tour, but you want it to feel more like an IG Prestige Pro from like 15 years ago. Another Dunlop that I think is great is the CX200 Tour. Buy this if you wish you could get a PT57A, but don't want to spend like $300, $400, $500 for one. Next up, the Head Prestige Tour. That's the 95 square inch head, and you should buy this if you want something with an absolutely loaded 338 swing weight straight out of the box. You can hit surprisingly huge spin with this racket. And last up, I have to recommend possibly the greatest racket ever made, the Wilson Clash 100, and you should buy this if you have terrible technique that causes you injury and you need something super comfortable and super stable to let you get away with hitting it late out there. Only a little bit of shade to you Clash users, but literally I think that's actually a good racket. And with that final insult, let me go on to plugging my consultation services. So on my website, I do offer paid consultations if you want to get up close and personal with me. Of course, I'm still more than happy to help anyone in the comments. Just let me know if you need some guidance down there. I still really try hard to answer absolutely every intelligible comment that gets left. Points if you leave a hilarious joke also, but link is in the description if you're interested in checking out that consultation service. In that service, you get to get really personal with me. We'll chat over email a little bit. I really want to get to know you and your playing style before I just drop my recommendations on you. I really don't phone these in. I try to be as personal as I can when I make my recommendations. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.